Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 1. So we are in the barn, and I just thought we can't be in the barn without a little furry friend. So today's guest, we have little Miss Luna. Luna is my brother's pup that stayed with me last night. We did some doggy sitting, didn't we? She is super pooped from playing with the other dogs all day, so she's like, dude, let me sleep. Like, she's literally just like out cold here. So she's all wrapped up nice and cozy, aren't you? Now get comfy there. But she is my little company today. But yes, back to why we are here. So this episode is mainly looking kind of where I've kind of come from and delving into a little bit of kind of what I've been through the last year, giving you kind of a background as to what I'm chit-chatting about when I do chit-chat about it. So I have talked about it before. I've done it for Instagram actually. I've done it on IGTV, which I don't know why, because it had to go up in 3 parts. It was real messy. Some people couldn't find parts. So that's why when I was doing this, I said I would just start from scratch again. So everything kind of started to come to a head this time last year. It was the end of October. And I got some pretty drastic news. Basically, where I had been living for 7 or odd years, I had to get out. So I was given 10 days and I had to have everything out. So that was the 4 dogs, the 2 horses, stuff like that. It was done in quite an uncomfortable way. I don't get into too much detail because I never want it to be an attack video or pick side. I just don't, I'm here to give my experience with the way my mental health was after it, I'm just over trying to badmouth, or not badmouth, but you know what I'm saying. I've moved on for it, and now I'm here to help as much as I can by sharing my experiences of mental health after that. But so I had to move. Thankfully, my mum took us all in, because other than that, my dad didn't have room. It was really stressful, and it was just coming up to Christmas. Obviously, work was hectic. My world was turned pretty much upside down. I was clueless as to where I was going, what I was doing. Everything was made very uncomfortable. A lot of wrong information was put out, and a lot of things were twisted in a very nasty way. And I was just literally felt, it was just crazy. It was crazy. I can't even describe how it was. At the time, it was incomprehensible how I felt. A lot of people turned against me due to misinformation. It just got really nasty and really toxic, and people that I would have thought I could have turned to for anything literally wouldn't look sideways at me. And it was really, really tough. At the same time, I was going through a very uncomfortable, hard, confusing breakup with the partner that I was with, and we were together for nearly 8 years, and unfortunately that was a very toxic relationship, and that all came to a head at the same time. As I said, October is a weird month for me. I call it the cleansing month. What must go goes in October. The same thing this year. My studio went in October. So we have now called it the cleansing month. The most stressful month of the year, but it's a cleansing month. So that's what I'm saying. Spin it to a positivity. So yeah, I tried to bury everything down and just go on as normal, going to work, talking to clients, but I was feeling like I was crumbling. I was continuously crying. Oh my gosh. I just cried and cried and cried. Clients that were with me for years, I wasn't even able to control it. I'd cry in front of them. Gosh, it was just like, I didn't know my body had that much liquid to expel in tears, but I was crying. So mom at this point was like, Rebecca, you cannot function. I think we need to go to the doctor. So off to the doctor we went. This was the first time I'd ever gone to the doctor for any kind of mental health issue, if you wanted to say. And I literally asked my mum to come with me. I was terrified to go to the doctor. I was scared he wouldn't believe me. I was scared he was thinking I was going in just to take pills. I was scared he was going to go in and say I wasn't bad enough. Gosh, I didn't know what to expect. Went in, it was like a breath of fresh air. It was so good. He just kind of chatted through and he was like, look Rebecca, if you broke your leg, you'd take painkillers just to help with the pain. At this minute you're going through a very stressful time in your life. We're going to pop you on something and just see how it goes over the next couple of weeks. So I was prescribed a very high dose of Xanax, and I was taking that 3 times a day. And that was literally just for me to function, to get into work, to be able to join the dots together. Then it was one day in work, a very good client, family friend, came in and I was in the depths of a panic attack. My dad was called and I remember my dad just holding me and rocking. He did not know what to do with me. Oh my god, like even now, I could feel his fear. He was just so genuinely scared. So after that we went back to the doctor, and that was when the doctor and my dad was like, no, you cannot work for Christmas. So I had to send out a text to my clients saying, I'm really sorry, but I can't go through with your appointment this Christmas. And that was tough. That was tough. To let so many people down. They were all amazing, so understanding. But it had to be done. So then throughout this, I'd lost my period. My period had completely stopped. So I was getting blood tests done and stressing about that and what was wrong with my body. And you don't go and be like, oh, it's definitely because of stress, I've lost my period. I was thinking something was wrong, something was going on. So I was booked in for ultrasound scans, blood tests, the whole shebang, all while this was going on. I was breaking out in rashes. Some of the rashes I still haven't been able to get rid of. They're now just part of me. So I was kind of going through the motions of this as well. Then the doctor popped me on to antidepressants as well and sleeping tablets. So I was still on the Xanax while we were introducing the antidepressants. And at this point, I had started stockpiling my Xanax and my sleeping tablets. Enough to the point that I knew I'd be able to do damage if I took what I had left. So I was now spiraling because I wasn't taking my tablets that I was supposed to be taking because I was stockpiling them, and nobody understood why I was spiraling, because obviously I wasn't going to tell them, oh yeah, all my tablets are in my drawer there. saving them for when I really need them, because I was afraid the doctor wasn't going to give me any more. And then I was kind of taking them when I needed them, but only in like really, really big emergencies. And coming up to Christmas then, Mum wasn't working because it was COVID, and she would literally have to walk me up the driveway like I had major surgery. It was like baby step after baby step. Everything had just shut down. I didn't want to do anything. Some days I wouldn't even get out of bed. I stopped eating. And then coming up to Christmas, I kind of got it together. I went out with one of my very good friends, roared crying the whole time getting ready, had all my makeup done, cried while I had my makeup done. And I went out and I didn't cry. And I was like, okay, right, I can, you know, maybe I can do this. So after that, that was kind of, I think, about 2 weeks before Christmas. And then coming up to Christmas was grand. I took a tablet then on Christmas, and then I got blackout drunk. 2 large bottles of Malibu. Woke up the next morning literally thinking I was dying. So obviously my panic attacks kicked in full force. My mum had to cradle me. And then there was this kind of like, am I going to slip into this drinking habit? So thankfully January came along, and Killian had signed me up to a fitness program, and that kind of distracted me a little bit. And did I do any of it? No, but the group chat was there and I felt like I was part of something. So January then I also started counselling, which was great. So counselling wasn't what I thought it was going to be, and I think I'll do an episode on that and kind of delve into it a little bit more of what to expect. And I think a lot of people may have a misconception of it, but counselling at the end of the day really kind of done an awful lot for me. But then coming to January, Mum was getting me out to walk more. I was still dealing with an awful lot of mental stuff going on, and the counsellor was slowly starting to chip away at what was on the underneath. I was also battling an awful lot of food problems, from incredible binges to starvation modes. And again, I will delve into that on one of the times that I'm talking about kind of my weight loss and how I didn't realise I had an eating disorder until going to counselling and stuff like that. So I will kind of delve into the weight loss side of things and how I got very toxic and came out of it, and I have to be careful of not going back into that kind of toxic place again. So got through January, and I changed my tablets in January as well, which I think made a huge difference. And so that again is, if you are on tablets, you know, sometimes your first, your second, your third doesn't work, but the ones that I'm on and I'm still on now have been the ones for me. Then the end of January, I think the counsellor was starting to really break down the walls. So we were starting to get into a little bit more of the nitty gritty stuff that maybe I was still holding back, and I started really opening up about my suicidal thoughts and suicidal tendencies. So this is kind of at the end of January, I think, and that time got very interesting to say the least. I'm just watching the time because sometimes my camera, oh no, it's still going. Sometimes it switches off in 15 minutes, but it's still going. So I then opened up to the fact that I daily wanted to kill myself, and that I thought this was normal. I thought it was normal to, on the daily, want to either drive into a wall, jump off a building, drive into the water, fall asleep and not wake up, pop a few pills, on a daily occurrence for probably the best of 4 years. I thought this was completely normal, and I was told it's not. That is not normal. That I was convinced that, you know, life has its ups sometimes, hold on to them when you do, but 90% of the time life is just shit and this is the way it's going to be. And I didn't realise that until the counsellor was really starting to drag the heavy stuff out. So one day we really got into the depths of it, and I finally had admitted about stockpiling my tablets and that I wanted to kill myself. At that point, my dad got called in. At the time, I was fuming. I was so angry. I was like, how dare she, you know, but that's what was needed. 100% now I can see that that's what it was needed. So when she got in contact with my dad, I was hysterical. I was roaring, I was nearly vomiting in the bin. I was so upset about it all. And then when my dad walked in the room, I was able to switch my emotions off completely, like nothing ever happened. My dad looked at me and was like, what's wrong? You know, you don't look like you're upset. I switched it off like a light switch. It was so natural and so comfortable for me to do that, because that's what I had been doing for years. And so I went home then, and obviously Dad was like, right, what's going on? We're going to have to talk about this. And I was like, no, it was just, you know, she just opened the floodgates, and, you know, I've been pushing it down for so long, it's grand. Went into my act the way I generally do and fobbed it off. And I sat at home that night. I was like, am I doing it for attention? If I can switch it off that quickly, is there something wrong with me? Am I doing it? Is this all, do I not feel this way? I started actually belittling my own emotions. It was bizarre. So next counselling session, I said it to my therapist. I was like, and she was like, Rebecca, that act is the act that you have been doing for so many years now. From what we have spoke about, and obviously I went into with her much more detail about my life before that and how I was living and what I was doing. And she was like, you've been severely depressed with no help for years now. And you have like a significant amount of trauma that you have blocked up, even going back to family issues, being bullied in school. It's all led up to where I am now. This act that you have is what has saved you. It is what has got you through. So for you to switch on so quickly and without it phasing you is natural, and to belittle yourself over a survival mechanism is not fair on yourself. So it was very interesting to hear that. But now, what I had been burying down for so long no longer had gates. It was the forefront of my mind 24/7 now. I wanted to kill myself. It was no longer a thought at the back of my head that I could subside, I could push back. It was just, came in and waved out. This was now there. And I remember my mum dragging me out for a walk. I say dragging, but she literally had to drag me, but it was for my own good. And being on top of a steep kind of like side of a mountain, looking over, and my mum was talking to me, and I was literally standing there being like, if I came up here and jumped, nobody would know. Nobody would find me. And my mum was having a full conversation with me, and that's all I could think about. There's photos of me smiling with her on the side of that cliff. And that's what was going through my head. So things got worse. And then there was a blow up. There was an argument that was had, because I'd fallen back into my act and fallen back into my comfort zone, I portrayed that I was getting better and that everything was okay, and then the pressure, not pressure, but normal things were then expected of me, but I still wasn't ready to go there. But nobody knew any different because of the act that I was playing, basically. And an argument had happened, and I was then in the house by myself, and I decided I was packed up all the dogs and left. And I went to the studio to work, and I sat there that night and cried and cried and cried, and it was just, I was so tired. I was so exhausted of fighting with my own brain. I was so exhausted of fighting. I was just so exhausted of everything. I didn't want to feel like that anymore. I didn't want to explain myself anymore. And there was so much nastiness going around at the time as well, you know. And I was so tired of trying to convince myself that it would be okay eventually, you know, that it just wasn't. I was just so tired. So tired. So I was sitting on the couch, and I had decided that I was going to kill the 4 dogs. And it's funny because if you had have asked me 3 years ago how I felt about suicide, I would have told you from my own lack of knowledge and my obliviousness to how you feel in the deepest depths of it, I would have said it's an incredibly selfish thing to do. And I know I'm not the only person who has said that. People have said it to me. And when I was there, I remember it all so clearly as well, like me telling myself, people die unfortunately every day. My mum, my dad, Rory, Roshi and the kids, my brother, they'll get over it. I'm going to die eventually. They'll mourn, they'll be upset, they'll question it, but they'll get over it. That's what my brain was telling me. They will get over it. That they must move on with their lives, they must live on, and they will live on. With the dogs, I was too afraid that they would be separated, or they wouldn't be looked after, or they'd go somewhere that wasn't good for them, or I was leaving the responsibility of them on somebody else. So if I was going, they had to go with me. There was no doubt about it. I wasn't leaving them behind. So with the dogs, it was easy. I could overdose them on horse medication. And then I'd kill myself, and that was the plan for that night. And I remember sitting on the sofa, and I actually have a photo of sitting on the sofa and Harvey sitting on my lap, and him looking at me, and it was nearly like he was just like, please don't do this, you know. And I was just crying and crying, and when I had decided that this is what I was going to do, it felt so euphoric. I was so at peace with it. And I was terrified of dying, terrified. I'd have panic attacks as a kid. Like, I'd wake up in the middle of the night. If somebody started talking about kind of dying or death or anything, I'd have to leave because I could feel the panic attack. But at this moment of time, I had no fear. I welcomed it with absolutely everything, every piece of me. It felt like a wave washed over my body, and I was just happy for it all to take it away. I was just so at ease and so at peace with all of it. And apparently I've been told that that's what pure acceptance feels like, when you get to that point that you've truly accepted that this is what you want to do. Had I not taken the dogs that night, I probably would have gone ahead with it, but I couldn't do anything to them. I couldn't do it. They have saved me more times than one. It's incredible. And Luna's little snores. But that night scared the living shit out of me. So when I decided that that wasn't what I was, that I couldn't, so I basically pulled myself, the dogs and myself pulled myself away from the edge, and I was still uncontrollably upset, crying, and the pain, I was still, so I decided to cut myself. So, and after my dad asked me, because when I was talking about it, he was like, why, Rebecca, why? Like, and I was like, Dad, my brain had told me that if I cut myself, I could pinpoint the pain. I could logically see where the pain was. I had so much pain inside me and my head, my heart. It was just, I needed some of it to go. And I felt by cutting myself, I could be like, no, that's the pain. That's the pain. That's what I'm feeling. And when the blood was running, I was like, it's leaving. It's leaving. That's it, you know. It's coming out. It's leaving. So that's what I did that night. And the next morning, I called my mum and I said, I need help. I can't do this anymore. So back to the doctor, upped my medication, my counselling increased. I was on 24/7 watch, pretty much. I was made sure that I was taking my tablets, and everybody just done everything they could for me. And I slowly but surely, together we were able to pull me out of it. Don't get me wrong, there were some days that I knew the camera would die on me eventually. 30 minutes, we lasted 30 minutes. But yeah, no, as I was saying, there were some days, look, that were really, really tough. But we got there. There was a lot of things I'd done, a lot of self-help. And I will go into them in different episodes and different chats. And more of my story will kind of come out as I'm talking to people to relate, and because obviously I do miss out points. I'm like, oh yeah, like, because sometimes I get a little bit kind of confused myself when I'm talking about it, but it's been a tough year. It's been a tough year. I'm just coming up to kind of around now when I was cancelling clients and stuff, so it's going to be interesting to see how I get through this Christmas. I'm excited for it. I didn't come back to work full time, just I didn't want to put that kind of pressure on myself, so I should be able to enjoy Christmas as well as work this Christmas. And yeah, I will, as I said, I'll talk about like different techniques I picked up, the sea swimming, journaling, meditation, that I found really helped me, but that just gives you an insight of kind of where I have kind of come through, and where I'm kind of talking a little bit of experience when I am chatting. But yeah, I feel like that video cutting out kind of caught me a little bit, so I'm a little bit like discombobulated. But as I said, more of my story will kind of come out. I just wanted to give you the outline of it. More of my story will come out as I'm chatting with other guests on the couch. But yeah, it's been a mad year. Wouldn't change it for the world though. Wouldn't change it for the world. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up so it's not too long. Do follow my Instagram. That is where I am going to be kind of putting up about next week's episode, or where you can send in questions or dilemmas if you want me to kind of have a chat. Obviously everything is 100% anonymous. There we go.